Actually, I'm sorry, we decided to move the item forward, so we're going to go ahead and start with 7.02B, Board of Education, discussion regarding district closed school properties, Sunset Elementary, Del Valle Elementary, Los Robles Academy, and Bixby Elementary. Can I get a motion?
It's a discussion item, Madam President.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start the discussion. Would anybody like to start? Mr. De La Torre?
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I want to thank City of La Puente for being here this evening and bringing your many years of experience. And I'm just at awe at everything you've done with the City of La Puente parks. You know, it's a beautiful event. I've driven by there many times, and I see it's actively being used by our community. So much that it's very, sometimes it's very hard to even find parking. But I, like I said, it's sad to say that we did have to close some of our schools, two of which are within the city of La Puente, Del Valle and Sunset. Now, with that in mind, we did have a conversation in regards that we wanted green space where families can come. Now, for many other families, it's not as easy to get to the park, to the current La Puente Park. So having the opportunity to have possibly our school sites that are currently that are closed for usage, I think it is phenomenal. I think having the opportunity to have our kids be active and walk with their families, walk their dogs or so forth. It's just, that's what we want to see. We want our community to be out there. And as we know, City of La Puente is a city that lacks green space. We do have a beautiful park again, but we need more. So if this opportunity arises, I think we should take on this opportunity to build a relationship with our partners in the city of La Puente, and they have the resources that we currently need because of funding too, when it comes down to safety, contracts with the LA County sheriffs, and make sure that it's a safe space for our students to go and participate, be active. So I'm in full support of having this conversation, and the sooner the better. We don't want the school sites to be left empty, because when those schools are empty, we know that there's always people that want to steal something, or there might be God forbid, charter schools want to move in. No, every single classroom that we have in our school district will be used. So if we can have this opportunity, and I would like to ask our current superintendent, acting superintendent, Roychowdhury, to touch bases with our city council, our city manager. I appreciate you being here, Bob. Thank you. And build something beautiful from something that cost us hard and stress from many of our community members. So I would like to see this conversation to be done as soon as possible, and see how we can work together, and if there's also any grant writing that we can do to maybe touch bases with our team and see what is available out there, because if we don't, these monies will be gone, as we know. They're currently they're constantly being cut. So I would like to see at least 2 of our 4 schools that can be, we could start something beautiful. And so I would like to hear from the rest of my colleagues. But like I said, I know these are the 4 schools that we're discussing, but there's other sites that we would also would love to build partnerships with other cities, city of industry. And I know we have within La Puente also, we have Temple. I know we're not discussing this right now, but see how we can do it, because Hilda Solis did a beautiful, phenomenal job with the Aquatic Center. And I would hate for next door to just look like an empty lot, when we can actually continue building, and where we can have concerts at the park, we can have all these beautiful things to our community, and let people know that La Puente is a beautiful city to live in and to raise their kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. La Torre. Ms. Quiñones?
Thank you, Representatives from La Puente, City of La Puente, for coming and bringing some great ideas that will service the children that attend our schools. We have 2 empty schools, and we have very limited space, green space in La Puente. I think it's a great opportunity to start a partnership, not only for this, but for many other things. I was very excited about the possibility of building an outdoor theater next to the aquatic center. If we can find the money to do it jointly, that would be great. That would benefit the children, who are the most important piece to all our decisions. I think since we were talking about, there's a grant that's going to expire if we don't use it by the first week in August. That's what I was told. So it's highly important that we start moving on that. We all have the same purpose on your side with City of La Puente, which is to create green space for our children. We also want a beautiful place for our children that attend the City of La Puente Unified School District. So what I would suggest is that we start meeting with our acting superintendent, Mr. Roychowdhury. I'm sorry. If we can start meeting with him, he's a very bright man. He's very responsible with numbers, and he knows exactly what plan works well for us. So with your best people and our amazing superintendent, I'm sure we can do wonderful things together. But don't let this be the only thing. Let's keep moving forward now that we have connected. Let's think about future projects together. There's a lot of things we can do to benefit our community. So I'm looking forward to building a wonderful partnership for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinones. Mr. Kwok?
So I want to go ahead and add my gratitude to see the City of La Puente being here in a very strong showing. And so, you asked this question, which is who can argue against green space, open space, right? And I would say this. There is a very significant difference between a city and a public school district. A city has a number of people that they're going to go ahead because it's quite life in the city, right? Public school district is different. A public school district cares about what? They actually care about public education. First and foremost, that's the only reason why we get any funding whatsoever is public education. So it's like, as a trial lawyer, it's like this. It's like you go to court and there's general court, right? So you have, for example, state court. State courts are courts of general jurisdiction, right? But if you have a family law matter, you don't go to Superior Court. You got to go to family law court. It's a specialized area. Public school districts are a specialized area. We're here for public education. We're here to further the mandate and the fiduciary on that. Now, can there be places of overlap? Of course, there could be some overlap, right? But in order to go ahead and take a look at the actual logistic of how these things work, let me say this. The district has always done it like this. The district does not have any expert in this area. Do we have a land use expert? Do we have a public use expert, right? Do we have an environmental expert, right? So what the district generally does, and not just our district, but other districts, they get experts. They take a look, all right, what can we have here? What are the possibilities here? We had a presentation before, remember? I had asked for a presentation that actually done it, and it was eliminated. It never came before us, talking about what? Land use, because there was an expert, in that case, was a legal firm, right? Law firm. We had agreed to go ahead and listen to it. They actually did it, but it was unilaterally removed. And when I found out about it, I said, hey, why don't we bring it back? It's just informational. And we had consensus to bring back. It still hasn't been brought back. We have to take a look at all the possibilities, all the ramifications. What is it that we want? It isn't just also public education and our kids and our families and our commitment to it, because we are essentially a agency, a public agency of limited jurisdiction, not general jurisdiction, limited jurisdiction. Who else would be in that limited jurisdiction? Our employees, right? Our teachers, our classified staff, our administrators, right? And they have a seat at the table. What is it that we can do? When you take a look at the other stuff that we had done before, it is significantly different. By the way, before I forget, we talk about green space. We saw this as a green space problem. This is the reason why we actually put in parks, if you recall. We put in a park next to Orange Grove, if you remember, right? That was a park with Mr. Supervisor at that time of the 4th Supervisory District. We've been redistricted now to the 1st Supervisory District. But that time we did that. We did one in Orange Grove, but we also did one in La Puente. We did a park right next to Nelson. And at that time, it was a big deal because it was the first park, new park in the city of La Puente. And we did that. So there is some historical context with respect to that. We actually did address that. Is it enough? Can it ever be enough, right? But at least if there's a narrative, I'm not saying that there is, but if there's a narrative like, oh, we don't care, whatever, not true. Factually, it was done. And the board at that time thought it was very important to go ahead and do that. That's why we did that. I was at the grand opening of that. I was at the grand opening on all of these things, right? So that's a process that should be done. Back to the other part about the joint use. So the joint use, we did that with Supervisor Kanabe. Supervisor Kanabe and there, I don't know exactly the amount, but it was $20 to $30 million for the community center. And ever since that day, I always called him the Big Kahuna because he did that. He also donated approximately $1 million to both the Wilson pool and the Los Altos pool. Now you got to remember the 4th Supervisory District did not include La Puente, right? Historically has not included it. It now includes one because of the redistricting we now in the 1st Supervisory District. So this is something that has a process. Let's take a look at this thing. I'd said before that I've always cared about a few things. One is, of course, doing what we can to provide our kids the best possible future in terms of college outcome. That was one. The other one advocate that I said was, we had discussed this before when we were talking about workmen and other capital improvement, right? And we had all this stuff, flying around. And I said, hey, if you want to do something, you can go back and listen to the meeting. I said that, there were accusations flying everywhere, right? And I said, hey, you can put the $20 million, put it at workmen, no issue, right? But I said that the thing that we should have done and looked at would be an AI institute, right? Look at everything is changing regarding that, right? So it's a process. I'm not against doing something like this. I'd spoken, we were there at the grand opening of the Aquatic Center. How much money did Supervisor Solis put in the Aquatic Center? A lot of money. A lot of money, right? And at that time, the director of Parks and Rec, she was outstanding. She came up to me and she said, hey, this is one of the greatest joint projects ever that the county's ever done, right? And then we say, hey, maybe we should do something, right? So they were talking about other projects that county does, right? Because you need to have a certain level of funding. So at any rate, I just give it some context to this. But first and foremost, my North Star is always going to be there, is what can I do for our kids and education? And I live this thing. I breathe this thing. I'm in this thing every day. And I follow the journeys of our kids. So I could go on and on. I will not do that. But I think it's important that we act in good faith. And I'm telling you, this is my thought process. We can go ahead and put it together because nobody can doubt the incredible park that is La Puente now. Because we were here when that park wasn't there. And I remember getting calls and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And I think it's a great idea. I've been to that park. It is heavily used. It has had a transformational impact on the city of La Puente. But again, we're a little bit different. If there's a Venn diagram, it's where we overlap. Thank you very much. I yield to you, Madam President.
I just want to start by saying, shout out to the city of La Puente. Okay, because you could go to Claremont, you could go to Pasadena, you could go to all these beautiful cities, and what they have in common is their green initiatives. Okay, and shout out to the city of La Puente for doing the hard work to bring that to our community because we deserve that too. Okay, and so thank you so much for being here, and then not just doing that work, but trailblazing and continuing to move our community forward. And so in the 4 years that I've been on the board, we haven't had this opportunity to partner on such an important project. So thank you so much for coming forward on something that is I'm really passionate about, that our community is really passionate about. Um, I'm an advocate for mental health. And we all know that mental health is not only important post a pandemic, but just on a regular basis. And having outdoor spaces that are wellness spaces for our community, it's critical for mental health. Those are tangible wellness tools, tangible coping skills, on top of all the other amazing things that could happen there. So this is a general discussion about all the properties. I do want to talk about programs like C-STEM. Thank you so much for our teacher that came up here, because these are the kind of things that we can do at these schools. We can do C-STEM. We could do all the amazing things that we as a community are going to come together and identify as a need. The proposal by City of La Puente is primarily focusing on any schools closed in the City of La Puente side, not in Hacienda Heights. The example of Orange Grove and the joint partnership agreement, that's a great example. That means we've done it before. That means we can do it if there's a will, okay? And that means we know how to do it. Now, the example of the dog park at Nelson, you cannot compare that park to Orange Grove Park, okay? I feel like that is the ongoing narrative that we're trying to dispel, right? And so I support maximizing our schools to support green initiatives. Now, we did vote to not sell the schools, right? Why? Let me tell you why. Someone said, because we're keeping public assets as they're originally intended. All these properties were intended to support children, families, and staff for generations to come. They give people jobs, children education. That's what they're intended to do, okay? So let me read here what this says regarding our properties. It says, selling district property is not always the best option. Take all necessary steps to retain ownership of district property. Property and buildings are some of the district's most valuable assets. This is by Orbach Henderson, the expert. Okay, so the expert is telling us that, yes, we need to secure these valuable assets, and selling them is not the best option. So what do we do with them? The first step is saving them. The next step is, how are we going to sustain them? How are we going to maintain them? We are in an economic deficit as a state, as a country. So we cannot just propose, hey, let's save the schools, and not have a viable option on how we're going to maintain them. So let me talk about, and I'll try to keep this part brief because I have a large report here. This here is a full report, okay? And on here, you will find reports on June 26th. We had a electrical infrastructure stolen at Del Valle, okay? We have on July 7th, people trespassing onto Del Valle. Let me see. On June 30th, we have a man located walking into Del Valle. On June 23rd, we have a call received from Industry Station because there's juveniles at Del Valle. On 6/17, we had a broken window at Del Valle. On June 16th, we had 5 windows in the principal offices found smashed at Del Valle. On May 25th, we had more, okay? I'm not going to read all the stack. The point is, if we don't do something about these properties now, we're going to have more vagrancy. We're going to have more destruction of our properties, which is not just bad for our assets, it's bad for our community that lives there. So what we need to do is we need to be proactive in how are we going to utilize those spaces. And so I commend the city for being proactive and not just identifying the need in our community, but offering tangible solution and resources. Thank you. Okay, because right now is the time that we need to be channeling all our resources. So we have experience with the joint use agreement. That is alternative options for surplus properties, also highlighted by our experts here in the reports. So this is nothing new. I did hear that the majority here speak on this. Now, let me tie it into education. I am an expert. Okay? I've been doing it. That's why I'm here. I've been working with people in the community for a long time. And all green spaces are evidence-based practices. People with PhDs are writing their papers, their whole PhD, whatever they do, right, on the importance of green spaces, how it helps people's mental health, how it helps the environment in terms of global warming. We're offsetting what it's called the heat island effect. Google the heat island effect, also by experts. When you plant food and you teach kids how to plant food, then they have a higher chance of eating vegetables. And we all know not only is that difficult, but students and children are losing a connection with their food. What are our kids eating these days? Are we passing it down? We're completely dependent on things that are full of things that are bad for our kids. We need to reteach them that. Now, I will stand by that is the most important thing with teach a child, how to reconnect to their food, because you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a basketball player, and if you're not eating right, what good is it? So all the concepts. Now then you have access to green spaces, how they beautify our community, how it encourages people to go out for a walk, how it improves the community's wellness, physical wellness, opportunities to come together and build community connections instead of being isolated, because isolation is actually an epidemic. There's people that have serious mental health issues and even up to suicidal tendencies because of isolation. So we need more community spaces where we can come together. And let me advocate for kids. That's my number one job. On a Friday night, on the weekend, where can your kids go for free? Okay, because I'm a social worker and I work with a lot of young people that can't go anywhere for free on the weekends, on the evenings. Most of the crime and things where not only kids get in trouble, but kids get seriously hurt and injured is after school because they don't have healthy outlets that are free. Not everybody has money to go everywhere and vacation. They have to be able to access their local green spaces. Those are everything that I brought up has been studied by people with PhDs. And my job as a leader is to bring that evidence-based practice and to implement it. Okay, those are the experts. And I've done enough research to implement what the experts are advocating for. So I support all the green spaces. In terms of the general schools, I think that there's a lot of things that we can do, but I do support this partnership in particular.